Newly confirmed Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has officially requested more than $137,000 in taxpayer funds from Congress in order to pay for emergency painting and home renovations to the military housing that Secretary Hegseth and his family are moving into. And setting aside the absolute hypocrisy of anyone in the Trump administration requesting six figures in taxpayer money for completely unnecessary updates when the entire Trump administration has been gutting critical social safety net programs in the name of government efficiency and taxpayer cost savings, the absolute fucking audacity it takes for Pete Hegseth to request six figures worth of taxpayer money to make entirely unnecessary and purely aesthetic changes to the free home that the U.S. military is providing for him and his family to live in, when there are hundreds of thousands of service members and their families still stuck living in base housing right now that is infested with black mold. There are hundreds of thousands of service members and their families who have been stuck unknowingly consuming forever chemicals that cause cancer, birth defects, and kidney disease, among many other things, after those forever chemicals were leached into the groundwater of all of these different bases and the base housing at them. Generations are going to feel the health effects of just how horrific base housing is at hundreds and hundreds of military bases across the nation. And that's just with the military housing that is privatized across the nation. That doesn't even take into account all of the horrific conditions that service members live in the dorms on bases across the nation or in the barracks whenever they're deployed. During my husband's first deployment, which by the way was during the first Trump presidency, my husband and dozens of other airmen lived in rundown trailers infested with black mold, visible black mold. So apparently black mold does not rise to the level of emergency funding, but Pete Hegseth not enjoying the color of the walls in the home that he's being provided to live in. Now that, my friends, is a fucking emergency. And when Pete Hegseth's ridiculous, wasteful, and unnecessary request for six figures of taxpayer money came to light, you'd think that he might actually have the good grace to at least pretend to be embarrassed or indicate that he understood the issue with him making that kind of request while the service members under him languish in horrific slum conditions. But no. See, Pete insists that in fact, not only is his request completely reasonable and no big deal, he is actually the victim because of this news being publicly reported. Pete even went as far as attacking one of his own former co-workers at Fox News because she simply dared to share the letter that Democrats sent to Mr. Hegseth to ask him some questions about this request for funding. Unfortunately, none of the questions were, how the fuck dare you, or where the fuck do you get the audacity? But regardless, Pete is offended that Democrats dare question him or his request, and extra offended that one of his former colleagues dares share those questions. Pete tweeted, "Fake news of the day, not surprising from Democrats and Jen Griffin, same thing. Any and all house repairs were going to happen no matter who was moving in, and were all initiated by DOD, but Dems and Jen don't care about facts. They're just Trump haters." Oh, I'm sorry. That's our bad. I didn't understand, Pete. All of those house repairs were going to happen no matter what. Except, wait, why would those repairs happen no matter what, but fuck all the rest of the service members, right? And look, I understand that the Secretary of Defense is always going to have nicer housing conditions than the rank and file in the military. I get that. I understand how the world works. But I would remind you that it is Pete himself who said that diversity is not only not the military's greatest strength, it is actually their biggest weakness. Those are Pete's words, not mine. So I would just like to say that, Pete, if you are so concerned about diversity weakening our military, perhaps you should eliminate the diversity in housing conditions by moving into a mold-infested, poisoned water slum yourself.